Okay, warm pumpkins and big and little. So the big one is going to start with a huge, long, kind of cigar-like shape or long, uh, and you'll do it long. Don't do the whole paper because we're going to cut this out. And you're then going to do like, act like it's a D or a butterfly if you want to think about it that way, or a C. And then you just do these, you repeat this, trying to create the ridges of your pumpkin. Don't worry about it being taller or smaller. It's just a line to get you going. If you need to make it bigger, you could. I'm going to take my yellow oil pastel and I'm just going to do it where the center, where the light would hit it. It's going to disappear. It's not going to stay that way. So just follow the shape of the curve of the pumpkin that you created. If you make them small, you're going to have to make a whole bunch of different pumpkins because you want to fill the space. So start with just one big one, and then you can make multiple pumpkins and decide which ones you like the best. So now I'm taking my oil pastel, and that's orange, and just filling in the white areas, but I'm pushing down pretty hard. I don't want it to look like crayon, and I'm just going right over that yellow and pushing into the yellow and taking the yellow and bringing the yellow back because you're kind of mushing it in. This is almost like paint on a stick, and you're just mushing that yellow into the orange. Don't worry about it going over the edge. You're just trying to keep that edge. Now I'm taking a brown and I'm going into where the crack of the pumpkin would be, the ridge, and where the bottom of the pumpkin would be. And then I'm just going to keep repeating this over and over and over again. So this is all real time. So when I'm doing this, all I'm doing is just filling up the spaces and pushing the oil pastel in. You have to work. It's a little arm work on this. So you don't want to go and invade another section and just make that brown disappear. So you're kind of like staying within each section as you work. So like I was saying, you're kind of like mushing this in and using that yellow to create some definition so it's not a solid orange. And I'm going to come back with the brown again and put that in. So it creates kind of like an indentation. It's sort of like the shadow where the curve of the pumpkin comes in. So this is a little bit showing value too at the same time. These are warm. We probably could add a little purple in it just to be interesting, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say red purple if I was to use anything. I'm just going to stay with the orange and the yellow and just overlap each other. I could put a little bit of red in here, but that might be too much, so I'm using the brown as one of my warm colors. And just layer it up. Don't put blue on these. Don't put green on these. These are just going to be warm because we're combining this with another project. And we just keep adding over and over and over again. By pushing, I'm actually using some really strong hand movement. So don't hold this like a little delicate little hand. You want to push in, and if it breaks while you're working, that's okay. It's not going to lose its value. It's not going to change it. It's not going to make it less workable. These are meant to be used and sometimes a little bit abused. Your yellow might get a little bit of the orange on it. That's okay. You're mushing it in there anyways. Here I go back again with the brown, this time going on the opposite. It looks like it's on either side of that center area. You're trying to create that little definition. Just keep going and fill it up. By overlapping that yellow, you're also smoothing out your oil pastel. You don't need to use a paper towel to rub. This is a totally different material. Use that oil pastel to mush into each other. Now I'm putting a little bit of white in it. That also helps with mushing color. So if it's really rough and you have a lot of white little dots in it, if you use a white on there, it sometimes mushes these colors. It doesn't really change the color. It's just kind of like a blender. I use my white as a blender. I don't use a finger or anything like that. So I'm kind of like trying to create a top of the pumpkin, and a little highlighter and a little bit, just because they move in a little bit, and then I'm going to put a stem on it. And it's kind of rough, so I use the brown, and I kind of, stems are not pretty. They're rough and jaggedy, and so I'm just using the brown, and then I'm going to mush some yellow on top of it. And notice how it just kind of blends into that brown and mushes that brown around. And I'll put a little bit of white in there. I didn't put any orange on this. I just kind of like push that brown on there. So now I'm going to add a little bit more definition on that top. And make sure the bottom has a little bit of a shadow to it. But again, this is going to get cut out. So keep in mind what we're working on, even if you have a little stray thing sticking out, it's okay. So that's the big pumpkin. Oh, yes, and you can take a little, like your nail and do little swirls and stuff like that. This is just like a non-realistic thing about this. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but I did a little scratch and I just did little swirls. That's all I did. You don't have to do this. And if you don't want to use your nail, you could use like a little bit of the edge of your scissors or the edge of a paper clip as a little scraper, but it's not necessary. I use a nail because I can feel that I'm not going through the paper, so you want to make sure you don't do that. So I just have a little bit of swirls. We'll do another activity where we do layers of oil pastels and we'll swirl more. So this is just a little fun little thing you can do with oil pastels. All right, we're done with the big pumpkin. So now I'm going to show you how to do some small pumpkins. So these small pumpkins will allow us to do overlapping. And I am going to go ahead and increase the speed so you can see how it gets finished.